Molossia is a micronation. Basically, it's a tiny self-declared country. We sort of see it as a self-expression, creativity, kind of almost like an art project, but not quite. But also, we want to have everything in Molossia that a regular country would have. That's why we have our own post office, phone system, and so forth like that. Molossia was originally founded in 1977. My friend James and I, we saw a movie called The Mouse That Roared with Peter Sellers, and we were really struck by the imagination and creativity and the idea of that movie. So we decided we wanted to have our own country, which was called the Grand Republic of Volstein. And he, at that time, and he was king, I was prime minister, but then he moved on, went to a different school, but I stayed with it over the years. And then once we obtained this property here in northern Nevada, it was really natural to raise the flag and declare it to be property of our sovereign nation, Molossia.
Cool. Could I move here and never pay taxes again?
Well, actually, no, we do not allow other people to move in and become citizens of Molossia. It's really kind of a family nation, if you will. We have a lot of people that would like to move here. Surprisingly, actually, from the Middle East, we have a lot of inquiries. Really? People who want to come here on a regular basis. I'll get about a half a dozen a week of folks that want to move here. I think partially because they would like to, come into the U.S. They see this as a way to get here. But Molossia is only open to really our current citizens and our family members. Some people, I think, do think that Molossia is real, and I think that actually is to our credit because we have worked so hard to make it look like a real place. Yeah. And but I mean, I guess I don't want to say that they're fooled, but maybe they think it's just a little bit bigger than it is. And we get fantastic offers. I'm a scientist. I will bring my entire family, and something along that. And it's like, no, you will not. No. We're not going to do any of that. So, and we're polite about it, and occasionally folks will be a little bit more rambunctious and be like, oh, come on, we really want to live there. No, come on, you really don't. The U.S. has never really had a problem with Molossia, at least as far as I know. I'm sure they snoop around our website because they tend to do that. But at any rate, they don't really care what we do because we are, I guess, again, they see it sort of as a, self-expression kind of thing, personal freedom and private property and all that kind of stuff. And that's fine. They leave us alone. We do pay taxes, but we call it foreign aid. So we give foreign aid to the U.S. to help prop them up. And you've seen their roads, so you see they need all the help they can get. Well, the war with East Germany started back in 1983. It's really back in the midst of times because I don't honestly remember even starting this war. But at the time I was the prime minister, it was the Grand Republic of Volstein at that time, and I was the prime minister, and I was also serving with the U.S. Army in Europe back in the Cold War days. So every now and again, they would roust us up out of our sleep, and we'd have to jump in our tanks and go, stand a post because it was, the time when you had to sort of do that. November of 83, when I was still prime minister, I guess I was rousted out of my sleep one too many times. So I decided to declare war on East Germany. And I have a nice little war certificate hanging up on the wall right there. I think that's it. Anyway, then I forgot all about it. And then a few years ago, I was reading through my records and I pulled this thing out and I thought, well, that's kind of cute, that's neat. And I happened to do a little research and discovered that East Germany still exists in the form of a tiny island off the coast of Cuba. It's called Ernst Thälmann Island, and it was given by Cuba to East Germany back in 1970-something, I think. Fidel Castro gave it to the East Germany. I guess it was sort of a symbolic thing, but essentially it became East German territory. They have a little statue on there and so forth, and it was never addressed in the Unification Treaty. So it was sort of like one of those limbo kind of things. So I guess we're still at war with East Germany. At least that's how we're going with it. Now there's nobody on this island. It's uninhabited except for marine iguanas. So I guess those would be the only existing East Germans out there are marine iguanas. And because we can't go there, because we are still subject, unfortunately, to U.S. Restrictions of traveling to Cuba, we can't really engage in peace with the marine iguanas there. And so we will probably be at war with East Germany forever. For as long as at least the embargo goes on, because we would like to go there someday. It looks like a really pretty place. Because micronations can be sort of a form of creativity or a form of political exploration, I think it really does help for people to engage, if you will, in micronationalism. It can broaden one's worldview if you learn more about how other governments work and so forth. Teach you a little bit about government, creativity, imagination, whatever aspect of it appeals to you the most. I think it definitely is a good thing. I met the First Lady through MySpace, which is really not that popular anymore, but it was a big thing back a few years ago, and we had both been to the same concert of all things. And I noticed her, she noticed me, kind of thing. And we sort of started communicating that way. And I didn't really present myself as kind of like it's like a separate thing. It was my civilian me, my non-president me, and then the president me. I didn't really present myself as the president, just as the guy down the road. But, you know, being a smart lady, and she is, she Googled me and figured out that I was in fact the president of the country, and she liked that. She thought it was a pretty cool idea. So she came into our relationship, it's been almost 5 years now, came into our relationship knowing that I was the president of the country, and very happy with it. And she's had a good time with it ever since.
Because there's not many men that can say, "I'll put your face on some money."
This is very true. And she's really my muse, if you will.
Yeah.
I'll come up with an idea, and she'll say, "Well, maybe this thing," or "Hey, that's a great idea," or often she'll come up with ideas of things that we can do, because we do try to keep Molossia interesting. A lot of people start a micronation, they adopt a flag, elect a government, and then they're like, now what do we do? But we try to keep Molossia going, because countries go. The country doesn't just like start one day and then now what do we do with our time? They actually go. People's lives function. They have activities, I don't know, whatever, scientific projects or rocket projects or whatever, the navies and all that sort of thing. So we try to, and again, I've referred to this earlier, we try to keep Molossia as real as possible.
Yeah.
And thus we try to keep our activities as real as possible and keep us interesting to ourselves as well as to the world. Molossia is about 1.3 acres in size, so it's actually fairly small. We do try to have all the trappings that larger countries have. We have our own post office, we have our own bank, we have our own bar and grill right next door, my own office here. We have a phone system that functions, that runs with wires running through all through the country over to a government house. Parks, monuments, pretty much everything that a nation would have. We have people come visit Molossia from all over the world, as far away I think as China, I think is the furthest, and of course Europe and so forth like that. About 100 visitors come every year, increasing every year depending on, like all countries, Molossia has its own customs standards, and there are certain things that can't be brought into the country. They are rather unique because we are a rather unique country. No walruses are allowed in the country. There was a cartoon strip called Bloom County a few years ago, and one of the opening splash things always was always a little sign next to a meadow under a tree, and one time it said no walruses, and my number 2 son and I thought that was pretty funny, so we put that on there. No catfish can be brought in the country. It's not like we have a problem with catfish here in Molossia. We're in the desert, but they're banned because we were going to be in FHM magazine a few years ago, and FHM magazine bumped us for an article about guys that catch catfish with their hands. They're called noodlers. So that's a couple things that you can't bring. No plastic bags, bad for the environment. No incandescent light bulbs, also bad for the environment.
But there's no catastrophes are allowed.
Yeah, no catastrophes are allowed. You can't detonate any nuclear weapons in the country, things of that sort. We try to keep it a little bit light, and we've adopted various rules and so forth. And because we are a unique country, we do have our own measurement system. It's called the Kokens measurement system, and the basic element that would probably apply to most folks is called the Norton. And this is a Norton. It's my hand. It's about 7 inches long. And if you ever have to measure something, you go somewhere, you can use your hands to measure. It's kind of convenient, but we really did that to be unique. We have our own time zone. We are 39 minutes ahead of Pacific time, or 21 behind Mountain, whichever way you want to be driving. And we again did that to be a little bit different. And just a few months after we adopted our own time zone, President Chavez of Venezuela adopted his own, the late President Chavez, adopted his own time zone off by about 15 minutes or something like that. Now, where do you think he got the idea? Right here. Absolutely. So we kind of do our own thing. We have a good time with Molossia.
Last question. Why do you dress like a South American dictator from 1975?
I dress like a dictator, well, because it's kind of a styling thing to do. But anyway, I wanted to be a little bit different. There are a lot of micronations out there, and almost everybody wants to be a king or a prince or a duke or emperor or something along that line. And I wasn't really feeling like I was royalty. It wasn't my thing. So wanting to be different, we deliberately adopted this is a dictatorship. Molossia is a dictatorship. Kind of handy when I'm sort of the head of the household anyway. It's a family country. And so, and we have, have a good time. It's a benign, benevolent dictatorship.
So you've never had to execute anybody?
Not yet. Don't tempt me. The day is young. Plenty of hours left in the day.
Yeah, cool.